the show is it's just great.
Thank
And
you.
I was wondering what made you discover, the whole startup angle of this? Like, were you a avid podcast listener?
I've listened to a bunch of podcasts, and I was getting into them, and then a friend of mine sent me Startup and said, "You got to listen to this. It's so interesting. It's this guy, and it's a true story. It's his life. He's recording his whole life because he wants to start a business, but he knows nothing about starting a business. So he's just making his very first podcast his own life story of going after the American dream and trying to balance work and family, and he's very funny, and it just became, I couldn't stop listening to it. I was like binge listening this podcast, and he said, let's turn it into a TV show. So I got together with a friend of mine, and we created an ABC family comedy around this guy's real life story, and that's what became Alex Inc.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you had Chris Sacca on the first episode. Are there any other plans for other guest stars along the way?
Well, we have a bunch of guest stars, but what was interesting about Chris Sacca was that he's playing himself. So in the real story,
Mm-hmm.
my character, the guy Alex, went and pitched his company to this self-made billionaire venture capitalist, Chris Sacca. And it went so horribly wrong, and it's like one of the most awkward moments of the whole podcast. You're like cringing because it's so bad. And Chris Sacca says to him, like, "Dude, this is the worst pitch I've ever heard. Let me tell you what you should have said to me." And so when we got to shoot the show, we asked Chris if he would come on and play himself, and he did, which was really funny.
And like you said, he was horrible at pitching, but there must have been something about him that just was relatable enough.
Well, his idea was good. I mean, obviously, because the company became really successful. So obviously his concept was good because, spoiler alert, that in real life, the company became really, really, really successful. It became Gimlet Media, which is one of the biggest podcast companies there is, and now has over 100 employees. And it all started like in his kitchen. And so Chris was able to see through this horrible pitch that this actually was a good idea. So I think that, I don't know, it just became a story about going after the American dream and trying to be successful and own your own thing while balancing your family and your kids and your wife and trying to do it all.
Is that what made you want to play him and be this character?
Yeah, I thought it was very relatable in 2018. It was kind of like going after the American dream, and it reminded me of those families that go into Shark Tank, and I really liked it a lot.
All right, and what has it been like working with the kids on the cast? They're so adorable.
They're very, very talented, and it was very hard to find them because we're a biracial family, so we had to find kids that were not only really, really good actors, but could be believably our children.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a great show, and I'm a big fan of the podcast as well. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much.
And look forward to the future episodes.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thanks.